underlying fundamentals support that valuation more at this time than they did in January of 2022?
Yeah, I think it's a historic day, not just for Cupertino, but for tech. And I think when you look at the story here, specifically on the services side, that's the key part of the sum of the parts. I think a lot of the bears miss. And I don't think it ends here. We believe this is the $4 trillion market cap by 2025. And at the end of the day, Apple continues to play chess while others are playing checkers.
What you call it something, the bears have complained that I guess there's not something that, it's all been incremental. There hasn't been any quantum leap in Apple's product mix, but that hasn't stopped it. You can see it right there. I mean, that obviously has a lot to do with momentum and the narrow advance that we've seen in the NASDAQ, obviously. But Apple has hit on a lot of cylinders. Just, it didn't go from an 8-cylinder to a 12-cylinder. It's just got a really good 8 cylinders.
Joe, I think what investors are missing, in my opinion, the ones that have bet against Apple, is it's a golden install base. We're talking about 1.2 billion iPhones, 2 billion iOS devices, and the Hall of Fame tactician Cook has led Apple through all the challenges from a supply chain to other issues. And you have 25% of the install base that has not upgraded their iPhone 4+ years. And that's why this is just starting on a sum of the parts to what I believe is really just almost the middle innings, with I think AI is going to be the next step as they build out what we believe is an AI app store. That's why I think this is just it's a flex the muscles moment for Apple as well as Tim Cook.
The goggles will mean what, do you think? Does that help with the AI build out?
Well, that's it. I think at first, most investors, 3,500, they're not going to sell many. See, our view is it goes back to that whole chess versus checkers. This is all about developers building more and more use cases. I believe AR/VR 2 years from now, that's a $1,500 headset. But really, ultimately, it's the breadcrumbs to what I see them building out an AI app store for Apple. And I don't think you've seen even any of that multiple reflected from an AI perspective in names like Apple or even Tesla. And that's why I think this big tech rally, we believe the new bull market in tech has begun. We see tech stocks up another 15% second half of the year.
So you think Tim Cook, you can check off a lot of boxes with him. I talked about it earlier. I haven't heard anyone mention missing Steve. We love Steve Jobs. We miss him, but no one has said, well, Apple can't continue without the strength of that personality. He hasn't superseded Steve Jobs, but it's close. He's, as you said, just navigating the supply chain issues and China issues, even political issues with China. He seems to be pretty good at that too. But I do wonder whether he runs out of room at some point without that next big thing. Maybe the goggles are it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's been, one of the knocks against Apple, but it goes back to that install base. I think ultimately, when you look at AR, VR, we believe Apple Car by 2026, it's all about that install base. Yeah, we think by 2026, they'll have the Apple Car, and that's going to be ultimately for Tim Cook, I think, another sort of trophy case moment for him. And I think it's a master tactician move. And that's what you're seeing in this environment. You look at the tactician, the Hall of Famers, like you look at Cook, you look at what Nadella is doing in Redmond. Obviously we've seen what's happened with Musk and Tesla. And I think that's why right now there's an AI revolution playing out. I think Apple, that's just going to be another phase to what I think reaching the $4 trillion mark by 2025.
We thought about Apple TV wrong. It wasn't a hardware thing, but that's how I navigate everywhere I go, is on Apple TV. And then you throw in some of the things that you need to have it for, because they do develop great content too. And so he did it in a totally different way. There is an Apple TV. It's just not what we thought it would be. There's going to be an actual Apple Car, you think?
Oh, we think 2026. It's a matter of when, not if. And I think ultimately, when you look how Apple ultimately is sort of playing this out, it's really about the install base, just further selling into that. And that's why from a multiple perspective, many doubt this name. I think the transformational growth that's happening at Apple continues to be underestimated. And I think you see that playing out quarter by quarter, despite many bears yelling fire in a crowded theater.